Kirby Air Ride is an underrated game and an underrated franchise, so it's crazy to see it get a sequel all these years later. So before the game comes out, let's enjoy the moment by returning to the original and answering a question I've always had. This is a multiplayer-focused game that doesn't really have any form of story or campaign. That makes it really easy to pick up and play. But despite having no story, it's enjoyable to play solo. That may seem odd, but it works for one simple reason. Being directed by one Masahiro Sakurai, this game features a tile-based achievement system as its means of progression. Much like other games he's directed, it has incredibly satisfying animations and sound effects. That, paired with seeing the board slowly filled in, is enough to do it for me. And what could be more satisfying than one achievement? Since this game operates in matches, all achievements you get in one round are awarded afterwards. This means you can get multiple achievements at once. Every time I started a new save file, I always tried to get as many as possible on the first round, and I'd usually get around 5 or so. But this has always made me wonder, how many achievements could you conceivably get in one match? The first step will be figuring out what achievements we'll get, so let's do everyone's favorite, planning. To begin, this game is entirely split into 3 modes: Air Ride, Top Ride if you're one of those people, and the only one anybody cares about, City Trial. The other 2 modes are much more rigid in how you play them, so as is usually the case in this game, they are not really relevant here. City Trial has 2 phases. You start in the city collecting items and a better machine, then everyone is thrown into a minigame to find the winner. This means we can plan around getting the most achievements in the city and getting the most achievements in the stadium event. The achievements are split pretty evenly, with 67 for the city and 50 for stadium events. The remaining 3 are what I call checklist achievements, which I'll come back to later. And as you'll soon see as we go through them, the stadium is much easier to plan out, so we'll figure those ones out first. It probably goes without saying, we can only get 1 stadium event per match, so all we need to do is figure out which event has the most achievements. If we divide the 50 stadium achievements by their events, then we already get our answer. Drag Race has a whopping 16 possible achievements, right? Well, that brings us to another important aspect of stadium events, what I call variants. Drag Race, for example, has 4 different tracks, and the achievements are neatly divided between them. The most you can actually get in Drag Race is actually only 3, and many other modes have that beat. It turns out the most we can get in one round is 5, from Air Glider, Destruction Derby, or Target Flight. Out of these 3, we could do any of them, but one of them is substantially easier than the others. Target Flight features one of the hardest achievements in the game, staying airborne for a full 15 seconds in that small enclosed arena. That would already be difficult, but in this case we would then need to nail the 100-point target, so that isn't looking like a fun time. Destruction Derby isn't looking great either, because one of the achievements is to bust these 2 rocks, which means we'd be reliant on the game randomly choosing Destruction Derby 1. And that leaves us with Air Glider. Fly 330 feet, 660 feet, 1,300 feet, and for 30 seconds. These are all very easy to get at once. If you get 1,300 feet, that also covers the other 2, and it'll probably take you around 30 seconds of flying anyway. But those mathematically inclined may have noticed something a bit off about this. That's only 4 achievements, and 4 is in fact not equal to 5. That is a very keen observation, so now I present 2 achievements that are not based around a specific event. Play in over 10 modes, and play in over 20 modes. Obviously, we can only get 1 of these in a single round, but it bumps up the amount of achievements we can get in a single event by 1. I say most because some stadium events, like Kirby Melee, feature a cumulative achievement that requires playing multiple times. Air Glider is easy to get all 4 achievements in on your first time, so we can tack on a 5th by just playing enough other modes beforehand. And so, we have our answer. 5 total achievements from the stadium event. And honestly, it shouldn't be too difficult. But if you're thinking this is too simple, boy do I have some news for you. All of the achievements in the city have to do with one thing: the city. That means that most of them are on the table, so we have a lot more to consider here. Thankfully, there's still a lot we can easily eliminate. Free Run is a side mode that doesn't lead into a stadium event and only has 4 achievements, which is laughable considering what we'll be getting into. Next is the multiple cumulative achievements. Bust 500 boxes, bust the star pole, collect 500 and 1,000 items, and race 60 miles. All of these have a follow-up with a higher number requirement, and they're all spaced way too far apart to achieve multiple at once. The only one that looks numerically close is busting the star pole 10 times, but that can only be done once per round. Another achievement we can remove is ending the game while everyone is on the rails. This one may sound easy, but it has two issues. With only CPUs, you're reliant on them being on the rails at the end. A task could maybe get this, but the amount of RNG manipulation you'd need is absolutely incomprehensible. But more importantly here is two other achievements. Damage 3 CPUs in one game, and end the game while all players are off their machines. The former means we need 3 CPUs in the match, and the latter means they can't really be on the rails because they're off their machines. That last one sounds like it would introduce its own RNG, but we can much more easily force that one by just, bullying them. So now, with all of those eliminated, we can start looking at the achievements we will get. The city isn't split up into modes like the stadium is, but one aspect kind of is the events. Yes, they're also called events. During your time in the city, some special events will occur, like a robbery, arson. For an abandoned city, they have an unusually high crime rate. Thankfully, these events are limited to a maximum of 3 per round, so we just need to figure out which 3 events we'd want. If we take the achievements revolving around events, and divide them by their event, we can already see 2 standouts with 2 achievements each. Dynablade is the simplest because we just need to get trampled on and damage her once. The other is the Huge Pillar event, which also has 2 achievements, break a total of 5, and break 1 in 40 seconds. To get both of those at once, you just need to break 4 pillars previously without ever breaking one in less than 40 seconds. And since the most events you can get in one round is 3, we can just pick any of the remaining events to cap it off. The next category is what I call Environment. This is a pretty vague category encompassing anything relating to the city itself. Bust the star pole, dilapidated houses, volcano and high plains rocks, all trees, volcano caves, forest pitfalls, get the bomb and sleep abilities from the copy chance wheel, use the high plains holes 3 times, the water wheel 10 times, rail into the crater, the building jump pad 10 times, use 5 sky rails, and reach the garden in the sky. We can get all of these environment achievements except for the first star pole one mentioned earlier. And yeah, that's it for those ones. There are 8 achievements that all consist of destroying X machine while riding Y machine. These form 2 circles, Formula, Turbo, Rocket, and Slick, Swerve, Bike, and Warp, and for some reason the Compact Star has unresolved beef with the wheelie scooter. All of these are possible, it's just subject to the infinitesimally small odds of all of these machines appearing in one round. There's a whole host of achievements relating to items, but thankfully they're all pretty straightforward. Get 10 of each power-up patch, except for HP for some reason, and get 30 total of Glide specifically, for some reason. Collect 50 items, including a few of these foods in one game, 3,000 total, break 1,000 boxes, and collect 10 items in the first 20 seconds of the match. The final full category is multiplayer, or CPU focused. Get 10 KOs with fireworks, 3 with Gordos, 3 with sensor bombs, 5 within one match, damage a CPU within the first 10 seconds, all 3 CPUs within one match, and finally end the match with everyone off their machines. Since we need 3 CPUs in the match, there's no way we can possibly have everyone simultaneously get off their machines. So that's the last large category, but there's still a few unique achievements. Assembling both legendary machines in one match is certainly possible, if they spawn, and so is traveling 200 miles, eventually. And that brings us back to the final category overall, achievements that aren't part of Stadium or the city, the checklist achievements. There are 6 achievements that give you a legendary part as a reward. Once you get all 3 for a machine, you get another special achievement thrown in. The Dragoon achievements are easy because we'll be doing 2 of them already, so we just need to reach 1,000 feet and high jump first. The Hydra is a bit more time consuming because we need to get 150 total KOs in Destruction Derby and 1,500 in Kirby Melee. But if we put in the time to get those first, and get the final parts in the final run, it will unlock both legendaries on the checklist as well. And finally, the last achievement we have to talk about also happens to be one of the weirdest in this challenge, getting 100 other achievements. If you get any 100 other achievements, you also unlock this one, and a cute ending cutscene along with it. Whether or not we can get this one is dependent on if we can get enough other achievements in advance without interfering with the ones we plan to get in the run. And as it turns out, we can get... that's all of them. So it looks like you can get every single other achievement without interfering with any of the ones in our run, so we can definitely get enough to reach that 100 threshold. And with that, we finally know what achievements we're going to get, and it couldn't be more perfect. 60 at once after getting the previous 60 in advance. So here begins the preparation phase. We'll start by getting some of the other achievements. We only need enough to reach 100 in the end, so of course I didn't go out of my way getting all 60, right? Yes, of course I did. This meant spending 2 hours in freerun, which was very fun and engaging. But following that, we get the 1,500 KOs in Kirby Melee, 150 in Destruction Derby, and reach 1,000 feet in High Jump to collect the necessary legendary parts. The rest of the achievements, get this, aren't interesting at all, aside from needing to avoid getting any of the achievements we're saving for the final run. So now we need to get ourselves set up for the cumulative achievements, getting as close as possible to their unlock requirements. Break just shy of 1,000 boxes, collect just below 3,000 items, and travel just less than 200 miles. Bust 4 huge pillars, but only after 40 seconds have passed, and take both the building jump ramp and the water wheel 9 times. KO CPUs with fireworks 9 times, Gordos twice, and sensor bombs twice. Sensor bombs are especially important because it is incredibly annoying to KO CPUs with them. And with the preparations complete, we'll have 60 achievements filled and many more lined up for the run, and... hang on, why does I say 63? I guess now is the best time to bring this up. It turns out that there were 3 achievements that weren't actually practical to get in the run. The first one to go wrong was collecting 30 glide total, because in all of the prep I had to do, we definitely used more than 30 glide, and they were very important to have. The next one was getting 5 KOs total in the city. Preparing for the 10 fireworks KOs alone would have done this, because we'd otherwise need to get most of them in a single match, which just isn't gonna happen. Finally, the third achievement I couldn't get was the 20 stadium events. Yeah, I kind of overlooked this problem. You can get this in the same run, but that requires you to randomly hit the 8% chance the game chooses it on shuffle, which again just isn't feasible. But there's still a lot of RNG in this run, so how exactly are we going to overcome these unsurmountable odds? Well, this is where a feature within the game comes in, the debug menu. There's no point in arguing, the chances of all RNG going exactly how we need is beyond unimaginable, so there is absolutely no way it's happening. But if we want to experience the theoretically greatest achievement streak, the most legitimate way would be with a menu built into the game itself. Now if you're looking at this, or hearing about this, and thinking this would trivialize everything, I'd encourage you to try and navigate this thing because this is not intended for players to use. It uses a ton of extremely obtuse inputs and the text is vague and unhelpful, so this required a bunch of research up front. Plus, this menu isn't all powerful, but it can do some very useful things to bypass the RNG. It can spawn power-ups, items, legendary parts, and even machines right on top of us, reset the city trial timer, and trigger any of the events on command. It can also do nothing if you want, or crash the game, that works too. Having on-command events could allow us to get even more achievements in one run, but we're keeping this to what is theoretically possible. So all of that is the plan, but in reality, of course it didn't work out so cleanly. All of the preparation issues stem from one unassuming achievement: travel 200 miles. This achievement is absolutely bonkers. I thought the 2 hours in freerun was going to be a problem, but oh boy is this worse. The best method I could come up with was to give myself a swerve star, some top speed, and just AFK on the rails. I could only give myself 9 top speed because I didn't want to get the achievement for getting 10 in one round. This achievement also only counts distance traveled in normal rounds and not freerun, so that was a good 2 hours. But eventually I got through it, and was prepared for the 200-mile achievement. But something working out as planned? Of course not. Getting this achievement this early turned out to be a big mistake. Earlier on, I found this section of the debug menu that shows you the distance traveled in the current round and the total on the save file. I used this to track my progress, but I just stopped when the number was getting kinda vaguely close-ish, I guess. And while doing other prep afterwards, this happened. It turned out I had gotten too close and ticked over that number while doing other prep. Thankfully, my entirely legitimate hardware has save states, but I didn't have one prior to the long rail grind. This was a really bad situation to be in. I did not want to redo the entire thing from the start, but I was clearly at the edge of that 200-mile threshold with more achievements yet to get. With morale at an all-time low, I had to get creative, which in this case kind of just looks like being lazy, but take my word for it. The main culprits were breaking 1,000 boxes and collecting 3,000 items. I had to get myself as close as possible to these numbers before the big run. For the boxes, I was able to use this strange feature in the debug menu's spawning mechanics. One button spawns the item on top of you as you'd expect, but the other button spawns it in this oddly specific location next to the wharf. While riding a machine that doesn't move when idle, I could give myself Gordos, throw them at the spawn point, and generate as many boxes as I could before they despawned. As for the items, I'll be honest, I just sat on this machine and gave myself 49 apples for 32 straight rounds. This Kirby is a doctor's worst nightmare now. Whew. So, as I found out, I stopped my distance travel grind at the last possible moment. Any further and I would not have been able to pull this off. But that was the last obstacle, so I guess that means the preparations are done. Now, finally, all that's left is to actually do this thing. Of course, we do the 2 start of round achievements first. Damage a CPU within 10 seconds and collect 10 items within 20 seconds. I used the debug menu to give myself 10 offense, which is not as easy as it sounds, but it came in handy immediately. The events take time, so I started getting those achievements next, starting with Dynablade. I wanted to get Dynablade out of the way in case I screw up and miss getting trampled on. Next, we can go through all of the environment achievements, which I can do in a neat loop around the city. The offense helped open the volcano caves in a single hit and clear the dilapidated houses more easily. I took this opportunity to get the Gordo and Sensor Bomb KOs since the CPUs really don't like to cooperate. Destroying all of the machines was also made easier with the extra offense, and by spawning the machines at will, but even with that it was still time consuming. Now is probably the best time to get the rest of the items, except for turn, because I still need to be able to control myself a bit. Breaking the huge pillar in 40 seconds wasn't difficult at all, again because of all the offense that we were lucky enough to find. And the last event we got by totally legitimate means was the restoration areas. I don't know why I specifically chose this one among the single achievement events. I guess I just had a desire to damage myself. And waiting, my favorite mechanic. Very close to the end, I got the legendaries. I thought about getting them earlier because the Hydra could be useful for damage, but I need to end with the Dragoon for Air Glider. Finally, I just need to watch the CPUs like gremlins at the last moment to make sure they're not about to find another machine, and I would never forget to jump off of my machine at the last second, of course not. And with that, we're greeted by an achievement sound jump scare before heading into the final challenge, Air Glider. Which I thought would be the biggest joke of this video, but we're so fast at this point that we reach the mythical end of the Air Glider track in less than 30 seconds. So for the final challenge, I actually had to turn the ship around and go backwards for a bit to kill some time. Over 30 seconds later, we land. And at last, brace yourself and take in the greatest achievement streak in air ride history. And with that, thanks for watching. Subscribe, I guess, and take care.